Today I'm in my local woodland and I'm going to challenge myself to try out a little bit of macro photography. Now, for those of you that are new here, this is a challenge for me because I have never done macro photography before. I'm a landscape photographer and I'm generally shooting big wide views or the coastline, or even if I'm in the woodland, it's much wider scenes. However, I do enjoy intimate landscape photography, something that I would see as kind of halfway towards macro photography. Leaves on the ground, or a leaf hanging off the tree, tiny little flowers, anything very small that catches my eye. But I've always wanted to try proper macro photography with a dedicated macro lens. So I'll talk you through all of the gear that I'm using for this little photo shoot. And today's video is sponsored by MPB. A big thank you to them, and a bit more about them later on. Now, as for my gear today, very simple. Although I've been a landscape photographer for nearly 6 years now, full time, I definitely regard myself as an amateur, a beginner when it comes to macro photography, but that's fine. I'm accepting the challenge. I've got my trusty OM System OM5 camera, which is actually, coincidentally, a very good camera for macro photography. And I've actually got this little Olympus. Look at the size of it. It's tiny, 60mm f2.8. I've actually got this on loan. And I figured that realistically, this is the macro lens that I would buy from my research if I was going to buy one. So it felt like the perfect one to loan. Now, I've also got as well, just a little light, a Ulanzi VL49. Probably not great for macro and stuff, but I figured why not come out with a little light anyway, just so that when I'm close in on these tiny little scenes, I can just maybe put a bit of side light on it and stuff like that. Something that, as like I said, a landscape photographer, this is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The concept of being able to use your own light source. It's like me grabbing the sun and moving it beyond the mountains or something and creating a sunset. I don't know. I've been watching a guy on YouTube, I'll leave a link to his channel down below, called Jamie Spenceley, I think. Seems to only just do macro photography. Fantastic channel, wonderful resource if you are a beginner. And fortunately for me as well, he generally shoots with OM System cameras and stuff and lenses like that. So yeah, he's been fantastic, really helpful. Wow, I have genuinely been here for well over an hour trying to take a photograph of this tiny little mushroom. I kind of pounced on the first mushroom that I saw, because watching that kind of Jamie Spenceley's YouTube and some other people and seeing a lot of macro photographs, mushrooms crop up so much. So yeah, I absolutely pounced on it. It's a beautiful subject. It's very dark, so I'm delighted that I brought my light, and I'm thinking that the light is really giving it kind of a beautiful effect. I've tried to put it kind of to the side, to the back a little bit, so we're getting a kind of side/backlight, really nice and dramatic, and it's given a nice warmth to the photograph as well. A lot of it's just been kind of like a physical faff with the tripod, and obviously working in terms of millimeters is just not something I'm used to at all, but I got there in the end. I've kind of gone for a composition that is very macro, where I'm on the 1:1 magnification on this 60mm lens, as close in as I can get. And I'm really like, at first I was going to fill the frame with the whole mushroom, the stem, everything, but I've decided to kind of hone in on the top section, and I'm really happy with it. I'm using the OM5's built-in focus bracketing feature, which is brilliant. So I set the focus plane just before the first point of the mushroom, and then I've got the focus differential on 1, which is the lowest, which means it takes photographs at really, really tiny little increments, and it makes its way through. I've taken probably about 50 photographs. I'll stack them all together, and hopefully we'll have a beautifully sharp, nicely lit subject in this tiny little mushroom. It has just started, you can probably hear it, lashing it down. Fortunately, I actually brought out an umbrella just before I left the house, like grabbed it last second. So I'm delighted. And the little Olympus macro lens, the f2.8, is weather sealed as well. So that is also a nice little bonus for me. Right, I'm gonna move on. You know what I'm gonna do here now? I'm gonna deliberately try and find a subject that is kind of my sort of eye level, you know, maybe something halfway up the side of a tree trunk or something, because crouching down like that for like over an hour, the legs are in absolute bits. Now, going back to this, I'm so happy I took this umbrella in last second. Going back to the subject of macro photography in general, I feel like my favourite thing about it when I think about macro photography is the accessibility. So I think like this, where I am today, this is my local woodland, it's 10 minutes drive, and it's just, I think it's a fantastic idea. If you can afford one, get yourself a little macro lens for whatever system, whatever camera system or brand that you're using. And oh my gosh, man, I've noticed already, it just opens up a completely new world down by your feet. And I was thinking about this at home. You could just go into your garden if you've got a garden. If you've got a house plant sat on the windowsill, you could just mess around with that. You know, like with the little light that I was doing, that sort of thing. You don't even need a light. You could just use the torch on your phone or something like that just to play around. I was just walking down this nice muddy path here and I recognised this big giant moss covered rock here where I got this photograph last year sometime, I believe. And like I was saying at the start, you know, I've never done macro photography, but I've always loved little intimate scenes like that when I'm going out and shooting landscapes. Now, a lot of the more modern Olympus cameras and the OM system cameras have got a really cool little feature where it will do the focus bracket, but it will also stack them in camera as well. Albeit you only get a JPEG file at the end of it, but it does keep the raw files. So for example, now I'm going to take a little image of this, I think it's a campion flower, and it's going to take 8 photographs, and I've got the differential set to 7. So a bit of a bigger gap in between each photograph as I'd perhaps like, but obviously we're only able to take 8. And then get it into position, hold it as steady as you can, bang, 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 bang. It's just smashed out 8 photographs in like half a second. And then, yeah, you can see here, it's just kind of processing that focus stack in camera. It's so cool. And I'll just press the old preview button so we can have a look. Yeah, that looks fantastic. All right, it's maybe not absolutely perfect, but like I said, even as a backup, you've got the 8 raw files that you can stack in post processing yourself. Oh, so before we crack on, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to MPB for sponsoring this video. And if you've never come across them before, MPB help photographers around the world buy, sell and trade used camera gear, and they make the whole thing very, very quick, very safe and completely hassle-free. Now, I've used MPB loads over the years, well before they ever sponsored me, and recently I actually traded with them. I sold my Olympus 7 to 14mm wide-angle lens and I picked up the Panasonic Leica 9mm, which I've been absolutely loving. And to do this, you just go over to their site, you get an instant quote, and if you're happy with it, they will collect the gear from your door, fully insured, completely free. And then once they've checked the gear over, the money lands in your account within just a few days. No faffing, no messing about. And they've also got a massive range of used kit as well if you're just looking to buy something, and everything's properly checked by their team and photographed individually. And now it actually all comes with a 12-month warranty too, so there's so much peace of mind. So if you've got any gear just lying around and gathering dust, it is well worth seeing what it is worth through MPB, and there's a link down in the video description below, and if you use that link, it really helps me out as well because it tells MPB, you know, that it's me that sent you. So a massive thank you to Uselot, and of course a big thank you to MPB. Now, macro, let's get back to it. I have completely failed in my endeavour to try and take photographs a bit higher up so I don't have to bend down. We've got another image here right down on the floor and the knees are in complete and utter ruins, but hopefully it's going to be worth it. And I'm photographing another mushroom here. Ironically, I'm right back in the same place where I got that image of the first mushroom, which will actually bring me onto something that I really want to talk about, something that has been the biggest challenge for me doing macro photography for the first time. But we'll get into that after I've shown you this photograph. So you can see I've got this nice little scene set up here, and this is there or thereabouts the composition. And yeah, this is a little bit wider than the image of the first mushroom, but I definitely think I prefer the subject. This feels like it's a better mushroom and actually a better composition as well. It's absolutely another focus stack. I think it's about 30 photographs. I'm not using that feature that I showed you before. I'm just shooting sort of 30 raw files, and then I will stack them when I get them into post-processing. But yeah, another very tricky one. Again, hopefully it's worth it. And then I want to talk to you about this challenge because it has not been expected at all. Now, before I came out today, I thought the most difficult part of macro photography was going to be the technical side of it. I thought that by a mile. I thought it was going to be the faffing around with the tripod, the intricacies of being so close to a subject, the lighting, the focus stacking, all of that stuff. And don't get me wrong, that has been exceedingly difficult. In fact, I've underestimated all of that. But the most challenging part of today has been finding things to photograph and creating compositions. I didn't really think about that at all. And it's very obvious to me now, I've just had this stint, but I'm very habitual in how I go out and observe the landscape and try to find photographs. Of course I am. I'm a landscape photographer. I'm used to wandering around woodlands like this and thinking in terms of 24 mil, 35, 50 millimeters, that sort of thing, not microscopically. So I've really had to try and be deliberate in how I observe my environment. And genuinely, you need to get into the habit, and this is the best advice that I could give, of like almost touching your nose into leaves and trees and dry stone walls and right down near the floor. That's how you find your macro subjects. It's very obvious. It is really obvious. But I would say maybe be prepared for that, as I was, if you're going to go out and do it for the first time and perhaps you've never done it. It's really easy to just wander around, you know, like I was doing it in this woodland. I'd be wandering for 5 minutes or more, and then I'd stop myself and think, I'm not even looking properly. I'm just looking up and I'm thinking of big wide shots, like I said. And yeah, it's mad really. But I feel like next time I go out, I'll be much better prepared. Thank you all so much for watching. If I could ask you a quick favour, if you could hit the thumbs up button, it genuinely helps me out so much. It takes you a second. It's free, and yeah, I would be so grateful for that. And if you would like to see more from me, do hit the subscribe button as well. Again, it's free, massively helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. See yous on the next adventure. Out.